from the Cyber Hub bunker and studio. You're listening to the CISOTalk podcast. No sales, no bullshit, just straight talk. Straight talk. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Happy Friday, Ashish. What's happening, brother?
Oh man, I'm so excited to be here. Can I just say that music, which is definitely has me going, oh my god, where am I? Is this like a rock show? But I'm feeling really amazing and pumped. I'm so glad I could see you again, virtually, but hopefully one day in person. But it seems like ages, man. I think I got you on my show, and it seems like time flies so quickly in COVID that I'm really looking forward to catching up with you here, man.
Me too, man. I'm grateful, folks. Ashish Rajan, if you don't know the Cloud Security Podcast, if you're not following Ashish, then you're missing out on a ton of positivity and just information in life. Like, he is the cloud. I guess you can say you're like the cloud security, kind of like guru, right?
Well, like, I don't know how to say de facto, but sure, yeah. But I appreciate that, man. I'm definitely humbled. And I apologize for every other vendor out there who's been trying to take over that cloud security search. I've pretty much dominated that, so I apologize for that in advance. But I may have taken over the cloud security search keyword on the internet for at least for the last 2 years.
Well, good for you, man. And it's you've taken it over because you put out good content, right?
Appreciate
and
it.
I've had Alan Alford on here, and I've had people always go, You bring out other podcasters. Why? They're like, aren't you guys in competition? I was like, no, we're not. We're just one large community that wants to do good. Like, you've had me on your show. I've been meaning to have you on mine. And it's just, you're in Australia. And I don't think a lot of people realize the time in Australia right now. But it's like, what is it? It's like
1 a.m.
1 a.m. Yeah. Like, yep. It's late. So
it's the future as well, by the way. Like, I'm not in Saturday morning now. You're in Friday evening.
So tell me, what's the future like? Because whenever JJ and I do a show, she always goes, I'm talking to you guys from, 17 hours in the future, and here's what's happening.
Oh, I normally say to this, like, your future is pretty bright, man. All I see is amazing results for your podcast, your community that you're growing. Because, by the way, I do want to call out, what you said is so true, man. Like, the circle of podcasters that I'm grateful to be part of, where I include you, the Hackerville Studio guys, and all of these people, that all of us believe in that a rising tide rises everyone. It's not just, hey, mine is the best podcast or someone else's is the best podcast. It's more all of us are bringing our own unique perspective. And I love the fact that all of us have that same no sales ethos as well, which I heard on your intro as well. I think that is so valuable and so refreshing for the cybersecurity community, because when you are like, they just want to come and learn from other people. They don't want to get sold at, right? And there are ways to market better to cybersecurity folks. And I think we do that. I think you do a great job of it as well. And by the way, I do want to acknowledge, I do see you live every now and then, and I definitely want to jump in and comment. But as 1 a.m. is not my normal time, but for you, I wanted to make this time out, man. So I appreciate you having me, but I do want to say you are awesome. I'm looking forward to you doing more amazing things with your podcast, man.
Yeah, I'm super psyched, and I appreciate that, and it's awesome to have you here finally. Let's get to some comments because someone's complimenting you, buddy. So good morning to the two most energetic people in our community. Love you guys. We love you back, Dutch.
Thanks, Dutch. Lovely to see you, man.
Matt Lee says, good morning. Hey, his beard's better than mine.
Matt, this is what COVID does to you. This is 2 years of growth with 3 trims. This is what it does. I'm trying to figure out whether beard oil should be a real thing or blow drying. But
morning to Mr. Brian Kane. Matt says, hey, that's my tagline. I love it. Amazing. Let's your ride ripples be felt. That's by Calvin. So thanks for being here, Calvin. So folks, this is a Cloud Security AMA. Ask anything you want. We'll talk about it. I will say, and I'll be remiss if we didn't start the show by talking about the fact that tomorrow is 9/11. And 20 years ago tomorrow, I don't want to say the world changed, but our way of life changed from that moment on. And for a lot of families, this weekend marks a very difficult weekend where they've lost their loved ones, and it's a 20-year mark for a lot of people. So take some time, and if you know first responders, veterans, soldiers, and what's really important for me to note is that post 9/11, a lot of allies and a lot of countries came to stand shoulder to shoulder with the U.S., UK, Australia, Ireland, Canada, New Zealand. So we on a day like today where we remember we also should be mindful and grateful to our friends who let that be. Yeah. My internet is becoming a issue, but hopefully that'll get resolved next week. But I do apologize. So if you guys missed the last word I said, which was, we got to remember our allies and the people who came to us at a time of need to support us. And with everything going on over the last month, it can be a bit more difficult, but just let us never forget, and let us always remember the brave men and women who ran into trouble only to find their demise. So take some time this weekend, hang a flag, say thank you, go to your fire department, and maybe, buy them some bagels. Send them a thank you cookie, something. That's really important. This is Jay, says, let us never forget. And indeed, let us not. And Matt says, did James just get shadow banned? And I'm like, if he shadow bans me over a 9/11 memorial tribute, like, I quit life at that point. Like, I quit
life. It's funny if you get shadow banned on LinkedIn. I don't even know if LinkedIn has a concept of shadow banned. You went and came back again, but I hope you caught that. So I was just asking if I don't think LinkedIn has a shadow ban concept.
They do. They absolutely.
Oh, they do.
They do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you go, Matt. You have introduced me to this whole new world of shadow banning on LinkedIn. I haven't reached the limit yet, I guess.
Yeah. There's an absolute. There's some of it, but we won't get into that. That's not the point of today's show. We're going to talk about cloud security as well today, right? Yeah. Which is kind of, you do your show, and you're really focused on the concept of cloud security. Let me ask you this: what is what's the one thing about cloud security that people are missing right now? Because maybe they're so focused on the shallow stuff, they're really missing. What's the one thing we're missing?
Oh, I love that question. And by the way, I just want to quickly shout out to the first responders on the day as well. I still remember 20 years ago, my dad, I was in India when this 9/11 incident happened and tragedy happened. And I remember my dad came running upstairs, switched on the television, and he had this face. It was like almost like he was just in awe, like, how can this even happen? And to feel the ripples all around the world, as everyone said, I definitely agree on the fact that it was one thing that people around the world remember. I remember it very, very vividly, and it's almost I cannot imagine a generation which would not know about it. So I just wanted to say a shout out to people who were first responders and helped out, and thank you for the service for everyone who got involved in helping people recover from it. And maybe some people are still recovering from it, so appreciate that. Now, cloud security, the one thing that people don't talk about, to answer your question directly, is, how a lot of people talk about cybersecurity, which is kind of like really broad. It's like, hey, what is really cybersecurity? Security awareness, or is it infrastructure security, or is it application security? What people don't talk about, cloud security is actually the same thing, but it just happens to be the environment is cloud. So I'll put some meat on the bone as well. The cloud security, if I was starting a company today, if I'm a startup, I'm not considering going onto on-premise. I'm just already looking at, hey, AWS or Google Cloud is going to give me some kind of credits. I'm just going to go jump there. So for them, cloud security and cybersecurity is exactly the same. They're still looking at, I want to get compliance in cloud. I want to have infrastructure security for the infrastructure that I'm building in cloud. I still want to do application security because I'm building applications. I probably want to do some security awareness as well because I may be using a workspace from cloud. So I may not even have desktops. I just let people log in straight into cloud. So I think that's what people don't talk about enough. And I guess that's why I put all my bets on it by calling a podcast Cloud Security Podcast instead of calling it Cybersecurity Podcast. Because for me, that's the next evolution. It's going to take time, and I'm in the long race, and I definitely want more people to talk about that because what people get overshadowed by to what you were saying. Oh, AWS came up with the release, Azure came up with the release. Oh, look at this incident responding tool. But they go into these shallow topics without realizing, actually, we've all been talking about this topic on-premise as well. It's just that we call it cybersecurity there. It just happens to be cloud security when we talk about public cloud.
Well, so you're starting to see kind of this division within organizations, right? Where you see a cloud security team get put together to deal with cloud. And I almost feel like if you're a hybrid organization, that's almost an oxymoron. Right? Like, do you really need a cloud security team, or do you just need a really good security team that understands how the cloud works with other parts of the business?
Actually, I would probably say I had a very different answer to this in the beginning. I was kind of exactly what you said. But over the years, as I've spoken to and I've worked with more financial organizations who still use technology which cannot be moved into cloud, like mainframe is an example. There's just not enough compute in cloud for you to move it across. What that has created is it's created a skills gap in people who have been in these cybersecurity departments or these companies for 20 plus years, 30 plus years. Amazing networking people. They know the firewalls back at the back of the fan. They have all the CCNA as MCSP, when that was a thing. They're amazing dudes, very skilled, and dudes and girls. And what I realize is in the cloud world, it's almost relearning what security is in on-premise. And the whole concept of, I don't own this anymore, I have to use automation is just not something that's easily understood by a lot of people. So you kind of need to have a separate cloud security team. And the reason being, Amazon, I'm going to use just one cloud as an example. They came last December when they had their AWS reInvent, which is the largest event of AWS, which is going to happen again in December, which is now, it's not called reInvent conference, it's called reInvent season because they have a month long of it. And they released 400 services. It's all virtual. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's all virtual.
So 400 services were released. Can you imagine a team, no matter how big the team is, being across 400 of those services? And by the way, that's just for that 1 year. You've already been in cloud for some time already. So in order to get the, I guess, right awareness of the security posture you have in your cloud, as well as being able to kind of work in a way that you have an understanding of both on-premise as well as cloud, you definitely need some people who are skilled in cloud in your team. But you definitely need to hold on to the ones that you are doing the on-premise jobs and upskill them as well. Because the future for enterprise is a combination of both. It's not just one or the other.
Right. I want to get to some comments here. So Dutch talks about the one thing that people miss is that it's not just someone else's data center. That's an overly simplistic mental model that does not leverage the value of a cloud. Matt goes on to say, my version of the cloud is non-infrastructural. It's an API to API and identity as the new edge. What do you think of that?
I love this. And I think he's definitely on the edge. Let me just say that because a lot of the people are still working through solving identity problem in their regular environments of on-premise and cloud. So and API as well. So in my day job, I work as a head of security, and I get to have a lot of conversations with CISOs as well, where a lot of CISOs are dealing with the problem of APIs and the whole. We should be public. Every endpoint should be public because that's the future. And you're going, wait, why does every endpoint need to be public? Well, because we don't have a control over who can access the API. Well, look at Amazon. Amazon has all their public APIs. They manage identity really well. But if they can do it at that scale, why can't you do it? And that has led to a lot of interesting identity conversation where you almost have to talk. For me, identity 100% is a new parameter because it's my on-premise services took care of my staff access and my access through domain controllers. That doesn't translate into cloud. I can use a shadow IT. I can have a shadow IT by someone swiping a credit card and signing up to Azure or Google Cloud or even Amazon. And they just manage their identity. They go into production. I would never even know about it. So identity 100% is that first, I guess, layer that you need to trap on. Hey, what are the people doing? What are my identities that are doing? And then understanding the kind of identities that are in cloud. Oh my God, identity and API is the future. That's all I would say. If the cloud world continues, there would be more people saying, "Oh, I don't want to go into a dashboard because every vendor would tell me, oh, this is one dashboard for everything." But then that's what the other vendor tells you as well, and that's what the other vendor tells you as well. I hope no vendor hates me for this, but it's like you have one dashboard for container security, you have one dashboard for your Splunk, you have one dashboard for your cloud security posture manager. And now, because we are moving into a developer-first world, a lot of these providers have started saying, actually, don't even worry about coming to dashboard. Just use our APIs, and your security team can talk to it directly. So, where James, or where we're going at the moment, Matt is absolutely on the money with identity and API.
So that's one dashboard to rule them all by Nick. And top of the morning to you as well, good sir. Thank you for being here. You're absolutely right about it. Every time I study cloud, right, I come to the same conclusion. Why is anything on-prem, right? Unless there's no way to take it to the cloud. Mm-hmm. Like, why even mess with on-prem? I think there's an aspect to the cloud where I feel like the cloud can solve some, today, what we consider to be complex issues very simply. That's a lot of that goes around the maintenance and updates of systems. It's easier to scale on cloud than it is to get someone to go update a server that's on-prem.
Yep, 100%. And I think I love, man. I think I love the fact that you're raising such deep topics in cloud as well. Goes to the depth of experience you're having in this as well. 100% not everyone should be going to cloud. I agree with you there as well. There is a world where waterfall still works. For people, I'm showing my age, I guess, for people who don't know what waterfall methodology is. I do remember going to a conference and no one knew what waterfall was. I was talking about waterfall, like, we only know agile. I'm like, what the hell? Like, how old am I? Like, I truly
You're
believe...
old enough to remember 9/11. There are people on our team that don't remember 9/11 because they were 3 years old, 4 years old, 2 years old. They don't remember it.
Oh my God! Yeah. So as age catches on to what we're doing, I 100% agree, and this is where I tell people as well. Every time someone would ask a question for, hey, we want to go to cloud, you would find that 9 or 10 times it's not the security teams that are saying we should go into the cloud, and rightly so, because they don't understand there is an on-premise environment that everything works just absolutely pristine. Obviously, it could be hard on the outside, soft on the inside. That's completely fine. But at least you know the environment, you know the risk that you're carrying as an organization. But what happens is a lot of people in businesses would just go down the path of saying, don't go chasing waterfall. Yeah, I love the song. Just appropriate moment for that as well. The on-premise servers, which cannot be moved across, 100% should not. Like, there are servers which are 25 years old applications, which are not meant to be moved into cloud. Even the cloud providers tell you don't move them to the cloud. But obviously, someone in the organization thinks it's a great idea for us to completely move into the cloud, especially those applications which we don't patch on the on-premise world. We should totally move them to the cloud, because cloud would force them to, I guess, update. But they never do, because they said, if we move this makes us $100,000 a minute why would we shut down this machine? So I definitely agree with you. Every time someone tells you, walks up to you and say, hey, James, you should go for cloud, should question why. Why? What is my application going to do so it's different to, by the way, automation has been a thing in on-premise as well, not just in cloud.
Right.
People have been doing automation for a long time. This is not a cloud-only thing.
So yeah, there's specific buzzwords that go with cloud, right? Like automation, updates and all that. You're right about knowing the balance of what you need to have on-prem and what you need to have on the cloud. I think there's another aspect to it when it comes from a security perspective, is if you can't do on-prem security good, what in the world makes you think that you can do cloud security any better?
Yep. Especially if you don't have the person in your team who has the right skill set for that cloud as well, who even understands that cloud.
You know, if you don't know how to manage identities, I'd love to see you try to manage identities on AWS or Azure AD, right?
Yeah.
Good luck. If you don't know how to, if you don't know how to set up a proper secure database on your on-prem, good luck.
I was going to say, well, you touched on an interesting point as well. Do you feel the vendors should be responsible as well in this? Like the AWS, Azure, Google Cloud of the world, they could totally be coming up to people and say, giving that right advice to them, right? Oh, that does not make sense. You should not move it. I have never heard a AWS, Azure, Google Cloud person ever say that, oh, I don't think you should move that 25-year-old application to cloud. For them, it's like, no, move everything into cloud. We can totally make it, modernize it, break it apart, make it into an API. And you almost go, I don't think it makes sense. But no, we can totally. And they're so pumped about the share prices that are going to increase as we will go into their services. They're like, oh, it totally makes sense. I'm totally going to do this. And it makes me laugh all the time as well, that something called shared responsibility as well, which is just thrown around by them. It's a great card to use when you've moved a shitty application into cloud and then say, hey, you said this would work. Hey, we're doing our part. You need to do your part of the application. But then what do you mean we need to do our part? You need to manage the application the right way, patch it, update it, make it microservices, make it API. We can give you the infrastructure to support that. That's kind of where they go with it.
Yeah, I completely agree with the shared responsibility. And I want to get into that. That's funny. You were reading my mind because I was about to get into the shared responsibility aspect of cloud. Matt, though, says, I don't think they can. I think platforms will continue to take away the ability to fail. And he's dodging bricks as he goes. And then he says, Ashish and I need to do a podcast session together.
Sure. Yes. I think Matt, you and I would definitely get along quite well, man.
Dutch goes, you can automate anything, including failure. You have to get to first principles and understand what you're automating, or you can fall down and hurt yourself when working at scale. And I think that's the aspect of cloud, right? That's what every single cloud. I remember I was meeting with a representative from one of the big cloud companies, I won't say which, right? And they were talking about scalability. And I reversed it and I said, okay, I know what I need to do to scale based on the infrastructure I have today. Mm-hmm. More servers, more bandwidth, all the traditional infrastructure stuff.
Yep.
I don't know what I need to scale on the cloud. I don't know how easy it is to duplicate. This isn't a copy-paste model, right? Scalability isn't a copy-paste model on the cloud, which I know a lot of people think it is. I've been in meetings where your light just came on.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, it took its time, but totally fine. It's like, and then there was light. I guess whoever the cloud provider was listening, they just enabled my internet, I think.
Let there be light. Let there be light. But it's one of those where I completely see it. And I was asking them about, they were trying to sell us on scalability. Yeah. And to me, scalability isn't very, very easy. And that kind of goes to the shared responsibility model. So a lot of the cloud providers had to kind of debunk the whole idea of who's responsible for security. Because early on in the cloud, everyone thought, hey, big cloud platform, you're responsible for my security. I think you remember as a CISO, I do as well. How many of us got those third-party vendor sheets and they go, well, are you on-prem or on the cloud? And they go cloud, and then how are you doing security? And they'll put, AWS. And you're like,
oh, do you have certification? Yeah, AWS has certification. Talk to AWS. And like, right. But wait, after your certification.
Yeah. Are you ISO 27001? Yes, we are. Absolutely.
Let me bring up the AWS ISO certificate for you guys. Like, give me 1 second. I'm like, okay.
Right.
Oh man. Sorry. You were saying about shared responsibility.
So we look at the shared responsibility model, and I've actually taken the shared responsibility model and I've expanded it beyond. I do a shared responsibility model for almost every part of the business today. Your infrastructure, we have a shared responsibility model. Your DevOps, we have here's the shared responsibility model. Here's what you're responsible for. Here's what we're responsible for. Here's how we work together. Here's how security. And I thought the shared responsibility model is actually really, really good because it really does break it down to those levels. How do you look at the development of the shared responsibility model on scale within cloud going forward?
Actually, that is a really interesting point you mentioned, because most of the shared responsibility conversation usually end at the part for, hey, this is the cloud provider and this is me. But there's another layer after that as well, because once you've moved into the cloud, to what you said earlier, whether it's your DevOps team or your center of excellence, if you want to have one of those teams as well, or whether it's your cloud team that's there needs to be some delineation there as well. I remember one of the consulting gigs that I was at, the incident response guys, they're saying, we want to be able to include cloud into our incident response. I think that's how the conversation started. And the incident response team VP and I was just talking about how are we going to do this? Where does the responsibility lie? And it was really interesting to see that there was no responsibility of security defined in the cloud as well. Although people talk about the fact that, hey, security should have a structure in there and security should have its own role. But what you said, it actually hits on a great point that a lot of people don't go beyond, hey, this is cloud, this is me. No one's talking about the me part. Is what's shared responsibility over there for our team. So it's pretty impressive that you've kind of gone down the path of describing that within your organization, man. I think a lot more people should be doing it, because I don't think there's like a thing in on-premise as well that we did. I mean, we did call out the waterfall method had these specific deliverables and specific teams were doing it. But in an agile world, even that's quite liquid now, like quite fluid.
So yeah, agile to me is the new buzzword, right? Like it literally is the new buzzword for me, because I hear it all the time. I hear it everywhere. The cloud has allowed us to do one thing that I think is very, very different that a lot of people don't understand, which is the ability to really to put out code every second of the day. You can write lines and lines and lines. You can have your DevOps teams just writing and updating and deploying quickly, because that's how your CI/CD pipeline actually works. And I think that's the one kind of underestimated challenge within cloud security. When on-prem, right, that wasn't everyone would write a bunch of code, you'd put it in there'd be an update, right? You'd update the system, you'd put it in your dev environment, you'd make sure everything works, and then you would send an email to everyone that lets them know on this day from
maintenance window,
we're going to be doing system maintenance, and the system may not be available to you.
Yeah,
right.
Because the change manager as well. I remember those days.
Right, but now with the cloud, you're seeing these cloud-centric apps. They update really, really quickly because of it, right? Like, my Signal will sometimes get like 3 updates a day, right? And I'll see like 3 updates coming through where it'll say, hey, please restart your Signal. And I'm like, cool. Because they're deploying stuff right away and then they're sending out those notifications. How do you see that?
I mean, I see it as positive. I definitely see it as a positive, but I also see it's kind of leaving security exposed a bit. The reason being, And by the way, by security, I don't mean security teams. I mean security vendors. And the reason I'm calling out vendors specifically is because cloud came in. Normally, what would happen is all of us have predefined set of security products that we use in our organization anyways. They are our guardrails against things that used to happen on-premise. In a cloud world, when you try and translate those same security products that you have on-premise onto the cloud, they don't translate well. Because if your vulnerability scanning software did the exact same thing, but in the cloud context, this would not be a challenge for us, right? Like if your developer is releasing a new update and whatever the machine that it's running on is already in production, it goes in. To me, a good vulnerability scanning software which understands the cloud context would have the context for, oh, this is a new release. These are the instance IDs or whatever, and this is when it was released. This is the information. Right now, I'm not gonna name any vendors here because only a handful for vulnerability scanning, but it's the same for everyone else as well.
Right.
That they do not have that context. They still work as if they're working on premise in the cloud. So I truly feel it's the security vendors that have been left exposed, and because of that, everyone else who is, I guess, trying to get ahead of the whole development CI/CD world, they're being left behind because there are no tools available for it. You're basically bandit fixing it. So I'll give you an example. If I have a CI/CD pipeline that deploys into production, yes, I can define a template as a security person to say, hey, these are considered low risk changes, so they can go straight to production. But if these are considered as medium or high risk, they cannot go straight to production because whatever the change may be causing which we may classify as a medium or a high risk. But for something to be classified as medium or high, the software that's being used to do a static code analysis or some kind of an analysis, that needs to understand the context, be able not. I came across a security vendor where you upload your code onto this random endpoint on the internet, well, random instance, they own it, and you get a result after 24 hours. Try telling a developer, oh, can you pause for 24 hours before you deploy this in a cloud world? That just would not fly. So I definitely feel more than us, the security team, it's more the security vendors have been left exposed. Although there are some security vendors doing a great job at coming up as cloud first and building cloud, but there's still a massive gap to be filled in the industry.
Yeah, there's a massive misunderstanding of vendors who were on-prem who try to go to the cloud and essentially take a product and say, well, now you don't have to put a box, right? We just sit on top of your cloud server, and you're like, all right, that's magnificent. Thank you so much for saving us all the time. But we've got some great comments, Ashish. Let's get to some of those, buddy.
Yeah.
Dutch says you can delegate your authority, but not your responsibility. The Army adage holds true in this instance. Chris says more of a other side question. How do you argue against the business moving the servers to the cloud and keeping it on-prem?
I think we touched on this earlier. What you would find is, depending on what application you're talking about, I normally classify them into two categories. One is, I guess there's not enough compute available for them in cloud already to begin with. It's a no-brainer. So simply asking a question, if you are, say, trying to move a mainframe, if you're working in a fintech or somewhere else, is there enough compute to support that architecture in the cloud, or is this going to be an experiment? Because I've been part of some of those experiments, and they have been, at least as far as I know, they have failed. So I definitely would question that. The second part is, if you have an application which is, let's just say, hasn't been maintained for a long time. It's one of those, I'm going to use, to James, your point, a buzzword again, cattle versus pets. I'm going to use that analogy over here. So if you have a pet in your on-premise environment, which you have been, I guess, you have a name for that server, and you've been petting that server for so many years, no one touches it, no one makes any changes to it, because that's the main money maker. And it hasn't been patched or it hasn't been updated for a number of years. I definitely would not move any of those for specifically a couple of reasons. Unless a business is ready to accept the challenge of breaking that into a more cloud-friendly application, which is going to be a massive cost for the company. So if they want to go do that, maybe saying yes is a better option because you're getting a better security posture by moving that across. But if they would say no to that, I would point out the fact that like the risk they are exposing to themselves by moving something which should not be moving in the first place. It should just remain there and continue to have some kind of an API connection or interconnectivity onto the cloud. However, I do want to call out there are primarily 3 or 4 reasons why people move to the cloud in the first place. One is if your data center lease is going to expire soon, and you're not, say, a telco, you're not like a person or a company that already owns data centers, so you have to pay someone else for those data centers, then that's one reason for people to go, oh, I guess it's going to be cheaper anyways if I transform it the right way. Not always, but if I do it right way. The other reason could be that people are trying to do big data projects now, and sometimes there's not enough compute for it that's easily available, and it's too expensive to get all that hardware together in one place. So instead, it's easier for you to, say, lease a server on Google Cloud for a couple of hours with that data. So like I probably would dig into a bit more of a detail for why, if any of these reasons is the reason why the company is moving to cloud. But my strongest position is for the ones that cannot have the same compute in cloud, and the second one being these applications which are generally pets, not cattle. Hopefully that answers your question. But that was a great question, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely great question, Chris. Chris goes on to say, James, the downside of being able to push code out as soon as the backlog so soon as the backlog of active defects for sites grow too fast. Matt goes on to say, but that same CI/CD pipeline speed combined with the non-monolithic programming models. What is that? He's using big words now.
Oh no! So I think where he's coming from is that just because deployment is easier and quicker into production also means if you have found a fix, you can deploy that quickly as well. Well, I'll tell you this, Matt, and the challenge is scale. We had this. I'm going to say we had this challenge where we have automation everywhere. We have agents deployed for your endpoint security, antivirus, and all that in our servers, right? And there was a faulty version of an agent that was released by one of the vendors. I'm not going to name them, but we had 500 servers that got deployed with the faulty agent because of that same CI/CD pipeline, by the way. And one Friday evening, I was stuck with on the phone call with the vendor because the only way to come out of it was for me to roll back all the changes that was done. And that kind of left us exposed with a lot. Like I think we had about 20 teams that we were responding to who were quite frustrated that this server would not come up because of a faulty agent. So that's also the flip side to having that, where if you have a problem, that spreads really quickly as well. But to your point, yes, a fix also would really travel fast as well. Oh, you're back. You got stuck there for a second.
Chris goes on to say my backlog. Yeah, the internet connection here is. I blame it on dolphins. My backlog went from maybe 50 defects to now over 2,000 because of rapid deployment. Dutch shares some awesome quick tips. It's very long, but I'll tell you to go read it, folks, around a cloud journey. And I may have to just do one with Dutch on one of these Fridays as well.
Yeah, Dutch is definitely a wealth of knowledge there. Well, Dutch, thanks for sharing that, man.
Chris goes, true, but explaining to the business doesn't always work out. Chris talks about all I can do is explain and state the risk. They have to accept it onto the next deployment. And, that is the definition of technical debt created by product drive over dedication, the legacy backlog sprints. That is definitely something, something to point out there. The other thing that I see with cloud, and I kind of want to, if we veer off from cloud, there's this idea from security vendors that you can only do some stuff only in the cloud, on the cloud. You can only use cloud stuff. And you know what? That's not always true, right? I mean, there are some stuff where you can actually like modify it to work on the cloud just as well as it would work in any other environment.
Yep. And I think I would probably even challenge the fact that not everything works in cloud as well. Not everything that they release is a finished product as well. Anyone who has been in the cloud world for some time, I've been in this for almost 7-8 years now, helping people migrate into cloud. And what I realize is every time any of these providers release a software, it's always an MVP. It is never a, hey, use this amazing software which we have tested fully. No, you are the guinea pig of that software. That's pretty much how I've always taken it. And what that means for me is there are applications like, for example, if you look, I'm going to bring back a security example here. If you just look at vulnerability scanning, if you talk to a cloud provider, they, oh, yeah, we do vulnerability scanning. Yeah, sure, we 100% we do that. And you ask, so you try and go a bit more deeper into, so what does that look like for you guys? I am a Windows shop with few Linux and Macs over here. How would that work? We have a vulnerability scanning, but it's only working on our images that are from us. I'm like, but I have a license running with Microsoft for so many years. Why am I going to ditch that and go for your Amazon Linux machines? Because clearly you're going to charge, you're going to update that for sure, but you can only do vulnerability scanning for that. Then what happens to my compliance conversation? So to your point, I would even say that there are things which you can never do in cloud. I mean, well, never is probably too strong, but you definitely cannot do it even now in cloud after 12 years of being in cloud world. And companies like Netflix and all these other massive companies on there, they all still have to deal with these problems the traditional way. We haven't really solved that problem in cloud for security.
No, and that's the one aspect of it is cloud gives you a bunch of benefits. There's also a bunch of deficiencies that come with the cloud. And oftentimes in that cloud journey that, Dutch, I'll bring up what he wrote because it's long and I don't want to read it off, but I'll have it hang in here for about a minute or so. If you're not considering all these different things that he mentions here, right, then you're in a world of hurt because you're going to start spending money and you're going to go somewhere and you're going to not only come over budget, you're not going to have the skill set. So now you're going out looking for consultants. You're calling some of the big four or the companies that know how to do the cloud. And you're like, I need 10 people here tomorrow, right, to do something, which both you and I know is unrealistic. And it just creates a level of exhaustion, right? And that's something that oftentimes people don't really consider. We're in the middle of the massive resignation, right? That's what they're calling it.
I read that as well, yeah.
Right? And this massive resignation, we were talking about it yesterday on CISO Thursdays and with Renee and Chris and Naomi. And one of the things that I looked at in massive resignations is look at the managers who are losing the most people. Because I guarantee you there are some people who aren't leaving irregardless, but there's some very bad managers who can't keep people in-house, who can't keep them because they're bad at their job and they're bad leaders. And that's the truth. That's the hard, cold truth. And you and I, we're leaders. We're both willing to admit we've screwed up with some really good employees because we didn't quite comprehend how to read them, how to take in what they're saying. We rushed too fast, right? I've been guilty of that, right? We all have. I don't think anyone can come in and say, yeah, I've got a 100% retention rate of all employees. Yeah, you're full of crap, right? Like that just doesn't exist. People hit a plateau, people leave. But what I'm seeing with the massive resignation, though, is the amount of skill sets that are being lost is significant when it comes to things of the future like cloud security, right? Like the people who understand business and cloud. Because cloud security is not just cloud security. Like I need to know how to secure the cloud. You got to understand how the business operates with the cloud. And like Matt brought up earlier, we live in a world of APIs and identities. And I've predicted, right? I'm predicting in 2022 and 2023 that API and identity is going to be our Achilles heel when it comes to one, vulnerabilities, number two effective cybersecurity incidents that lead to a breach at some point.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, I'll probably, I was going to say those two on the money. And I probably would also add the supply chain is still going to be a big piece of it as well. Because the more we move into, hey, I can use a SaaS or I can use another third party to do this, Supply chain would probably be, I'll probably add supply chain in that list as well, but 100% on the money. API, identity, like even now, it's funny, most of the consulting gigs that I was doing for enterprise, I think it was still early this year when I was consulting, and we were still talking about identity access management in cloud. And you go like, how difficult is identity and access management? It's quite complex if you are in an enterprise context. There are teams dedicated, 20, 30 people, 50, 100 people, just looking at identity and access management in cloud. So 100% identity is going to be going out of the window. There are products like CASBs of the world, CASB, or SASEs as you are calling it, SASE now, as per thanks Gartner for another acronym. But now we are getting to a point where we have organizations that have said SaaS first, cloud second, and then we think about should we refurbish or on-premise or something else. So people who are going SaaS first, they're all going for supply chain risk, opening themselves up. But these are, again, having identities. They also have APIs. So, man, you're so on the money. Maybe you should like come back to this recording in 2022. Told you all. Like,
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it, right? I don't want to say that I told you so. I want people to take it seriously now, right? I hate being the I told you so guy. Vic says, by the way, if you're going to be in the cloud, make sure you have an umbrella to protect you from the dangers that could rain on you and your company. I love that, Vic.
I love it.
Managers are not leaders. Leaders inspire and empower. Managers take measurements to meet their own interests. That is very, very true. You see that quite often. Chris here has a question for us. Let's see if we can tackle this one. If you have an issue that was accepted by the business and it's been in the backlog for a while, how do you approach that to have it escalated to be fixed?
The way I've done it in the past, and I think maybe a strong approach. If it's a risk that I'm comfortable with, to not have a strong, just say a strong foot on, I normally would just go with the business going, okay, I'm going to remind you every year when we do our review. So it's funny, we joke about ISO 27001, but a lot of people do understand only that. They only see security as this compliance checkbox. Cloud security, yeah, you guys can do that, right? Don't worry about that. Make sure we get certified. And whether you're a SOC 2 person or an ISO person, I normally use that as an opportunity to bring up the conversation. I normally tell my internal auditors to go, hey, can you bring this up in the report? Because when we present this to the CEO, I want them to know that this is a real challenge. And at that point, if they accept it, I'm going, okay, I've just done my part. I'm going to walk away from this. There have been times where it was absolutely something that I did not agree with. And let's just say I ended up leaving the company. So because I just was not comfortable. So that's why I said maybe my method may have been extreme, but I don't think you should do that. You probably should try and find, as long as I think you're doing your part by making the company realize what the risk is. As leaders, that's what we do as well. We're able to make sure we expose what risk are we exposing the business to. And if it's a reasonable risk that the company thinks that they can accept, then we move on and continue to grow. Otherwise, we address it then and there. That's how I would approach it. But I'm keen to know, James, what do you think, man?
So I'm looking at all the comments and I see everyone use the same buzzwords of risk and move the risk and talk to the business. And you know what's missing here? Relationships. If you've got an issue with part of the business, why are you not leveraging the relationships you've got to get it taken care of? Right? So when I have an issue that, a lot of people think security does the patching. We don't. We recommend, we assess, we put it on a timeline, right? There are people who are in patch management who are, either in the office of the CIO or CTO or wherever within the business, and they do it. I mean, security acts as just kind of like a conduit to that information. Dutch says that in his comment here as well. But security's main job isn't just to advise. We're not supposed to be the obnoxious consultants of risk within the organization. We're really supposed to be the relationship builders within the organization. And our role is really to go and identify who are the key stakeholders within different business units, and then go look and find those stakeholders and have those conversations. And the conversation doesn't have to be we've been asking for this to get done for 3 months. It's, hey, I know you guys are really, really busy right now. And I understand there's a ton of priorities that are getting thrown your way. We escalated something down the pipeline 2-3 months ago. It hasn't gotten done. I'm not trying to add pressure to an already, pressure-filled situation. But what do you think is a realistic timeline to get it done? If not, let us think of ways where we as security can partner with you to mitigate that specific risk, right? Where we can do, some compensating controls. We can look at other stuff. It's great to always talk about risk to the business because we feel like that's what the business understands. But this is the number one shortfall of most security professionals. Where are we leveraging our relationships, right? Where are we going 100%. And talking to the people? Why are, if our goal in security is to elevate the role of the CISO, which I see happening, right? Where I think in a few years, the CIO will report to the CISO. We're starting to see that shift, right? That shift is now happening in financial services and it's happening in government. So once it happens there, it typically tends to spread like wildfire. Think of it as like a brush fire. You kindle a few of those, people start to see it. They start to go, wait a minute, what's happening there? And then the board members start to talk about it, and that happens. So security is going to have a little bit more control over these issues. I actually think this is a problem that once security is sitting next to the CEO on the totem pole, within the next 3 to 5 years, this won't be an issue anymore because we get to dictate that priority. And that becomes a bit more of a balancing act. But today, and in today's environment, we've really got to leverage relationships. And it's not only the leaders, but it's also the people who do the work. Like, when was the last time a CISO went out with a patch management team that wasn't part of his team for a beer? Why not? They're the people you depend on, right? They're part of your job security. Why are you not buying them beers or doing virtual happy hours with them? Like, build those relationships. To me, relationships are critical, man. Like,
I'm glad you mentioned it. I'm so glad you mentioned it because I think it's one of those skills that a lot of people just do it, but don't really call it out. They just feel like, oh, that's part of the job. It's part of my job to talk to this team and work with them on a realistic timeline so I can have a realistic timeline that I can go back to the rest of the team or the rest of the business with. But you're right, because you kind of have to do some initial groundwork to win the trust of them as well. Because when you're going in as security, based on who was there before you, they may have a good or bad impression of security already. And then you walk in with, hey, I've got this thing lying in there for 3 months already. What are you doing about this? And you come all aggressive instead of, hey, let's work together on this and see what we can do. 100%, man. Relationship goes a long way, are just making our lives so much more easier. But it's a give and take street, though. Sometimes we just have to give up on timelines so that we can get our job done for the future, for a bigger job done in the future. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. We look at here, Matt has a really cool comment. He goes, why is security a we? Why is security not part of every business unit? And I got a round table, so to speak. One member of each team is a floater for admin control purposes and a stakeholder to represent and make decisions about security and context for each business unit. Also the hearts and minds person in the boo. Yeah, I listen. I'm a firm believer. I'm a firm believer in the following: is I have champions across every business unit.
Same. Yeah.
They are our champions, right? And they're out there. Their job is to build relationships. That if you hire a DevSecOps person to only backfill stuff that DevOps does, you're missing the point of a DevSecOps person. That person should be a DevOps person that gets a little perk. And if you're smart enough, you get DevOps to pay half of his salary. You pay the other half, right? So now you've budgeted. You've actually increased your budget by an X amount of dollars, right? Because you're not taking on the full payroll aspect of it. And it's very interesting. I'm writing my book, Ashish. I'm writing a book. I'm calling it The Modern CISO, right? And I did a preview to it with Alan on his podcast a few weeks ago.
Right.
And so I'm in the process of writing my book. And in my interviews, I'm finding so many people always revert to the technological or risk aspects of things and not the human aspect of it. And I go, security is human. Because guess what everyone keeps telling me all the time? What's the weakest link in security, Ashish?
Humans.
Thank you.
We've been drilled into this for so long. It's almost like who's the weakest link in the chain? Like humans are the weakest link in the chain. Oh my! Actually, congratulations on the book, man. I didn't know you had a book coming out. It's pretty awesome. Thanks for coming in, Judge. He's gonna bounce, but thanks for sharing. I was gonna say to what you said earlier. It's really interesting about the DevOps piece and sharing the budget piece as well. Like say I guess we had a question earlier about what happens from Chris about the business part. To get more extra budget, it's also a way of showing that, hey, you can trust us by having we want to give you some trust back by giving you some responsibility. No, I probably would not use the word responsibility, but we want to give you more access to security things. So you guys can see what we see. You guys can have more access, see what we're doing, tell us what went wrong. In a way, those champions is whoever came up with that model, the best model possible. I'll be curious to know how you go about identifying those champions, because it's not easy, and it's actually every company has these champions, people who are afraid to put their credit card online, people who are not afraid, probably careful to put their credit card online, always questioning, hey, whether we should use SSL. They're the first ones to say, I think all our connections should be encrypted, but I think we should confirm a security person because I'm not the right person. Like, how do you go about identifying those people in your teams usually?
So when we were in person, I used to do security happy hour in the break room. So we'd bring alcohol, food, all kinds of stuff. And we would do a security open roundtable, like open. So different people from the security team would sit there and we would answer questions, and it can be on anything. How to secure my kid's phone. Here's my home laptop. Help me install my antivirus and VPN. I brought my home router. Can you help me update it? Like literally that kind of stuff. We would dedicate an hour a week to do that. And in that time period, we identified people who continually came back week after week, not only for the beer and pizza, right? But they also came back and they would want to learn. They'd be like, hey, I'm working on this one project. And by the way, this helped us build great relationships in the company. During COVID last year, the way I started doing it was on Slack or on Zoom. And we started doing them on Zoom, and we would open the Zoom room and we'd leave it open for 4 hours, right? And it just be there, and people would come in and go, and different people would do all kinds of stuff. And if you came in and we helped you solve a problem, right, we'd give you a $5 Amazon gift card. We had HR come in and say, if you go to this happy hour, you're going to get entered into a drawing, all kinds of stuff. So start finding people who have an interest in security, right? The people who geek out. And then, because you want the first few champions to be people who are going to succeed, but not be obnoxious. And I think that's really important to understand, right? You don't want the champion program to be a bunch of I told you so's. You need it to be people who are able to comprehend what business does, what security should do, and then who they refer to and kind of set them up to do it. But we're out of time.
100%.
Ashish, can you believe it? We're out of time.
I cannot believe this. You could have just kept going for hours, man.
The time has flown. But Ashish, tell our audience who's watching and listening, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to follow you? Where can they find the Cloud Security Podcast? All that good stuff.
Awesome. First of all, thanks for having me, James. It's always a great pleasure to come back on your show. And I guess coming back and meet you, I guess that's probably the highlight of this, and getting to meet your audience as well. So thank you for all the questions that came in as well. For people who want to connect with me, I'm just Ashish Rajan on LinkedIn. Cloud Security Podcast is cloudsecuritypodcast.tv. And you can find that on LinkedIn as well. Kind of like what James does. We all stream live on LinkedIn, YouTube, of the world, and this is a live stream world. Probably, I feel I probably want to say this, that I think your podcast and my podcast are the only two podcasts that live stream on LinkedIn. I don't know if any other podcast that live streams on LinkedIn. Which one does?
So Renee and Chris live stream on LinkedIn, Breaking Into Cyber.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, that's true. And is there anyone else? I don't know if anyone else.
I've seen other people try to
live. Oh, there you go. Did you just go cute? Like
they've tried. It's cute. It's a good attempt. But we enjoy live streaming. I enjoy the interaction. I like answering questions. I don't do the podcast to hear my voice when I edit. I'm really our goal is, and that's why I have people like Ashish on, and I do stuff with Alan and other podcasters, is because we're trying to better the community. We're really, this isn't a full-time job for any of us, although it feels like it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of effort required to run a podcast is definitely it definitely feels like a full-time job, and having 2 full-time jobs is not good for anyone. But yeah, thanks for having me, man. I think so. For people who want to reach out, it's Ashish Rajan. It's just the H in the front because James and I, the first time I spoke to him, he was like, "Is your name Hashish?" Like, so that's a joke that I came up with because people couldn't pronounce my name earlier, and I would just start by saying, "Oh, it's the same with Hashish without the H." And I started this handle called Ashish Rajan because I could not find Ashish Rajan anywhere, because apparently it turns out I'm not the only Ashish Rajan in the world, but I am the only Ashish Rajan in the world. So that, thankfully, I have got that title. That's why on Twitter, I'm Ashish Rajan. So there you go.
Awesome, folks. The awesome Ashish Rajan joining me today from Australia. Grateful that in the middle of the night you got up and joined us here, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Check it out. Everyone, have a great weekend. Take some time. Thank first responders. Thank veterans. It is a tough weekend here for our nation. We remember 20 years ago, over 3,000 people lost their lives in what was a horrific terrorist attack. So we'll bow our heads and remember them. For everyone else, thank you so much for watching today's show. We'll see you on Monday for the Practitioner Brief right here at 9 a.m. And go check out Tech Corner later today. I've got an awesome episode that's going to be live on YouTube in an hour. Go check it out. Till then, folks, have a great weekend. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Make sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends and colleagues. And get all the latest information at cyberhubpodcast.com.